Exam Scholar, Real Estate Edition.
Question 1. When there is more than one borrower on a note, the obligation to pay the balance is the responsibility A. Jointly, B. Severally, C. Jointly and severally, D. Individually. Answer C. All of the borrowers on a note are obligated and responsible to pay the loan amount both jointly and severally. Severally means individually. Question 2. If a potential buyer sees a home that he or she likes but decides not to buy it because it seems overpriced, this would likely be based on the principle of A. Price, B. Conformity, C. Substitution, D. Habendum. Answer C. The principle of substitution is the idea that there is an equally desirable property at a much lower price. In this case, the buyer is exemplifying this principle. Question 3. What happens when an agent/broker misrepresents the principle? A. Rescission or civil court action. B. Criminal penalties. C. Apologies but no legal action. D. None of these. Answer A. If an agent/broker misrepresents the principle in the sale, there should be a rescission or civil court action for damages. Question 4. If a buyer assumes an existing loan, the buyer also accepts what on the loan? A. Risk. B. Liability. C. Performance of contract. D. Insurance. Answer B. In this case, if a buyer assumes an existing loan, the buyer also accepts liability on that loan. Of the given choices, this is most correct. Question 5. The party that accepts the endorsed note from the original payee without knowledge of any defects is known as A. Endorsee, B. Endorser, C. Holder in due course, D. Truster. Answer C. The party that accepts the endorsed note from the original payee without knowledge of any defects is known as the holder in due course. Question 6. Most trust deeds contain several clauses of A. Indeterminacy, B. Acceleration, C. Habendum, D. Due process. Answer B. Acceleration means that if a buyer cannot make payments on a note, the lender has the right to declare the entire sum due and payable immediately. Most trust deeds contain several clauses related to acceleration. Question 7. The surface of the earth and the material beneath the surface of the earth is part of the A. Real property, B. Water rights, C. Section, D. Geolocation. Answer A. Parts of real property include the surface of the earth and the material beneath the surface of the earth. Question 8. Airways above a property are A. Public domain, B. Owned by the property owner, C. Owned by the owner up to 500 feet, D. Owned by the owner up to 1,000 feet. Answer A. Airways above property are now considered to be public domain. Use is granted to an owner to a reasonable height. Question 9. If a buyer defaults on a loan and the lender declares the note to become due and payable immediately, this would best be described as A. An exculpatory clause, B. An habendum clause, C. An acceleration clause, D. An momentum clause. Answer C. This is a classic example of an acceleration clause. Question 10. If demand remains constant while supply increases, which is most likely to happen in regards to prices? A. They will increase. B. They will remain the same. C. They will decrease. D. None of these? Answer C. Typically, when demand remains constant but supply increases, competition will increase and competitors will lower prices to outbid one another. Question 1. Common law refers to A. An unwritten body of law based on general custom in England and used in some states to a certain degree. B. A generally accepted practice. C. Common sense. D. None of these. Answer A. Still used to some extent in some states, common law refers to an unwritten body of law based on general custom. This type of law is based on general custom in England. Question 2. When a real estate transaction occurs, which of these typically earn the highest commissions, barring any other contractual agreements? A. Realtors. B. Lenders. C. Appraisers. D. Lawyers. Answer A. The largest commissions that are earned in a real estate transaction are those earned by realtors, in general. Question 3. When a veteran is looked at and proven to be eligible for a VA loan, the document that is given to them from the Department of Veterans Affairs is called A. Certificate of Eligibility. B. Certificate of Authentication. C. Certificate of Availability. D. Certificate of Green Light. Answer A. A certificate of eligibility is the certificate that is issued to a veteran that is determined to be eligible for a VA loan. Question 4. The assessed value is A. The valuation placed on a property by a public tax assessor for taxation purposes. B. The valuation placed on a property by a certified real estate appraiser. C. The valuation placed on a property by a real estate agent after looking at comps. D. None of these. Answer A. The assessed value is the valuation placed on a property by a public tax assessor to determine the appropriate tax rate for the property. Question 5. When a loan is paid off, it is also known as being A. Amortized. B. Finished. C. Completed. D. Exhausted. Answer A. Amortized is the proper term for a loan that has been paid off. Question 6. When a loan is being paid off, over time. A. The amount of interest increases while the principal balance decreases. B. The amount of interest decreases while the principal balance increases. C. The amount of interest decreases while the principal balance decreases. D. The amount of interest increases while the principal balance increases. Answer C. As a loan is being paid off over time, the amount of interest being charged is recalculated based on the remaining loan balance amount at predetermined intervals. Therefore, over time the amount of interest on a loan amount will decrease as the principal loan balance decreases. Question 7. When a veteran receives a loan, which organization guarantees the loan in the event of a default? A. The VA. B. The FHA. C. The HOA. D. The CIA. Answer A. The Department of Veterans Affairs, VA, is the organization that guarantees VA loans in the event of a default. Question 8. A federal law requiring lenders to fully disclose in writing the terms and conditions of a mortgage, including the annual percentage rate and other charges, is called A. Truth in lending. B. Veritas of oblige. C. Transparency of disclosure. D. None of these. Answer A. The federal law that requires lenders to fully disclose the terms and conditions of a mortgage, including the annual percentage rate and other charges, in writing, is called the Truth in Lending Law. Question 9. A transfer tax is A. State tax payable when title passes from one owner to another. B. A local tax payable when title passes from one owner to another. C. Both a state and local tax that is payable when title passes from one owner to another. D. None of these. Answer C. A transfer tax is both a state and local tax which is payable when title passes from one owner to another. Question 10. The company that specializes in examining and insuring titles to real estate is called A. A title company. B. An insurance company. C. A transaction coordinator. D. None of these. Answer A. A title company is a company that specializes in examining and insuring titles to real estate. Question 1. If a property has a large crop of annuals, which conveys as personal property? A. Trees. B. Crops. C. Mineral rights. D. Air rights. Answer B. Without any kind of contractual agreement to the contrary, the annual crops convey as personal property of the person who planted them. The person may still harvest them as they become in season after the sale of the property. Question 2. Mortgages and trust deeds are similar by A. Securities. B. Title. C. Statute of limitations. D. None of these. Answer A. Both mortgages and trust deeds are security interests in real property. In the event that the borrower defaults, they provided the legal right to have the property sold. Question 3. The final step in the statutory dedication process is A. The recording of the subdivision map. B. The acceptance by the proper official. C. The signature of the real estate commissioner. D. None of these. Answer A. When the subdivision map is approved and recorded, this would be the final step in the statutory dedication process. Question 4. Any encumbrance placed on a property without the owner's consent is considered A. An involuntary lien. B. An abstract of judgment. C. An involuntary attachment. D. An involuntary judgment. Answer A. An encumbrance is usually a monetary amount placed against the property. This is also called a lien. An encumbrance placed involuntarily can be considered an involuntary lien. Question 5. A person makes an offer to purchase a property that was shown to them by their broker, but then waits to present the offer to the seller until later that day. In the meantime, 2 more offers were submitted on the property. Under the rule of agency, the offer A. must be presented alongside the other offers to allow the seller to make a fair choice. B. must wait to be presented to the seller because the other offers take priority in order. C. is considered to be void because only one offer at a time can be placed on a property. D. Must be presented first because the offer was known by the broker before the others. Answer. A. Under the rule of agency, all offers must be presented to the seller. Question 6. A section in real estate is A. 1 square mile. B. 36 square miles. C. 7,467 square feet. D. 1,280 acres. Answer. A. A section in real estate is 1 square mile. A township is 36 square miles. The other two answers are equal to 2 square miles. Question 7. A person who is required to reside on the property and to sign a claiming statement is most likely referring to this. A. A homestead. B. A trust deed. C. A superintendent. D. A farmstead. Answer. A. In order to file a valid homestead, the person must reside on the property at the time of recording the homestead and also sign a statement that claims the property as a homestead. Question 8. If an agent is the agent of the seller, the agent owes the buyer A. Honest and fair dealing. B. Nothing. C. Fiduciary duties. D. None of these. Answer. A. The agent is required to deal honestly and fairly with the buyer when the agent is the agent of the seller. The agent owes the seller fiduciary duty. Question 9. As a tenant in a business center, the operating owner installs separate and additional lighting and counters to accommodate the retail business that is going to be operating in the space. Upon vacating the property at the end of the lease, the lighting and tables A. Are considered trade fixtures and are the personal property of the tenant. B. Are now considered part of the building and will convey with a sale. C. Can be removed but only by the owner's expressed permission. D. Must be properly removed by the exiting tenant. Answer. A. The fixtures are considered to be trade fixtures in this case and are the personal property of the tenant. While it is not required that they be removed, unless by contract, they must be removed carefully and any damages must be repaired by the tenant. Question 10. The license issued to practice real estate is considered A. A privilege. B. A protected right. C. A right granted by the real estate commissioner. D. None of these. Answer. A. The ability to practice real estate as a licensed professional is a privilege, not a right. Question 1. If an asset is showing a decline in monetary value or a decline in the value of property, this is best known as A. Depreciation. B. Expense. C. Declining value. D. Comparable dispersion. Answer. A. Depreciation is a decline in the value of property and, in accounting, is the declining value of an asset. Question 2. In the most basic sense, debt is considered A. Any amount owed to another. B. A credit from one person to another. C. An owed amount with interest. D. Anything of value that is borrowed from another. Answer. A. An amount that is owed to another is probably the simplest form of the definition of debt. Question 3. A loan in which the lender makes payments to the builder at periodic intervals as the work progresses is best called A. A short-term interim loan. B. A construction term loan. C. A convertible construction loan. D. A periodic convertible loan. Answer. A short-term interim loan is a loan in which a lender makes payments to the builder at periodic intervals as the work progresses. This type of loan is also known as a construction loan, but not called a construction term loan. Question 4. Homeowners association fees are also sometimes called A. Common area assessments. B. Condominium fees. C. Common designated conveyances. D. Area commune fees. Answer A. Homeowners association fees are also sometimes called common area assessments. They are paid by the individual owners and are used to maintain the property or common areas. Question 5. A time deposit that is held in a bank that pays a certain predetermined amount of interest to the depositor is known as A. A certified deposit. B. A certificate of deposit. C. An interest-bearing account. D. A time-stamped deposit. Answer B. A time deposit that is held in a bank that pays a certain predetermined amount of interest to the original depositor is called a certificate of deposit. Question 6. If a homeowner refinances the mortgage on the property at a higher amount than the current loan balance for personal use, this is called A. Cash out refinance. B. Reverse mortgage. C. Equity line of cash. D. None of these. Answer A. A cash-out refinance is when a homeowner refinances the mortgage on the property at a higher amount than the current loan. This happens when the current borrower intends to use the money for personal use. Question 7. The final lump sum payment due at the termination of a specific type of mortgage is best called A. A hovering payment. B. A balloon payment. C. A floating payment. D. A deferred payment. Answer B. A balloon payment is a lump sum payment that is due at the termination of a balloon mortgage. Question 8. The best definition of an appraiser is A. An individual qualified by education and experience to estimate the value of real and personal property. B. An individual that works for lenders exclusively to estimate the value of real and personal property. C. An individual that works exclusively independently as a contracted agent to estimate the value of real and personal property. D. None of these. Answer A. An appraiser can work for lenders or they can work as independent entities. They are always qualified by education and experience to determine the value of real and personal property. Question 9. A value created according to a government formula intended to reflect the true annual cost of borrowing expressed as a percentage is called A. PR. B. ARP. C. CPR. D. ADR. Answer A. Annual percentage rate, otherwise known as APR, is a value created according to a government formula intended to reflect the true annual cost of borrowing expressed as a percentage. Question 10. Liabilities, including long-term and short-term debt and any amounts owed to others, is best known as a person's A. Financial obligations. B. Net worth minus expenses. C. Debt. D. Assets. Answer A. A person's liabilities that include long-term and short-term debt as well as amounts owed to others is best called their financial obligations. Question 1. If the expiration of time has passed in regards to the communication of acceptance by the seller from the buyer, this offer is considered A. Terminated. B. Valid. C. No longer an offer. D. None of these. Answer A. One way to terminate an offer from a buyer by a seller is to let the time expire on terms of acceptance. Question 2. In real estate, the offer to perform on the terms agreed is called A. Tender. B. Performance. C. Negotiated. D. Acceptance. Answer: A. An offer by one of the parties to a real estate transaction to carry out that party's part of the contract is called the tender. This typically takes place at the end of the transaction. Question 3. If one party cannot perform their part of the agreed terms of a contract, the victim party can claim the other party. A. Performed negligently. B. Defaulted. C. Is voiding the contract. D. Is causing interference. Answer: B. If a party cannot perform their part of the agreed terms of a contract, the other party can claim the other party defaulted. Question 4. If a party was discriminated against, they could A. Bring private action through a state or federal court. B. Bring criminal action through a state court. C. Bring criminal action through a federal court. D. Bring civil action through a state court. Answer: A. Because discrimination is not considered a criminal act, the option of the party would be to bring private action through a state or federal court. Question 5. If a buyer of a property wishes to move into the newly purchased home before the close of escrow, the agent/broker should A. Allow it. B. Deny it. C. Obtain written consent from the owner. D. None of these. Answer: C. Because the home has not closed escrow, it is still owned by the current owner, and therefore the agent/broker must obtain written consent to allow the new buyer to move in before the close of escrow. Question 6. A legal cause of action in which a binding agreement or bargain for exchange is not honored by one or more of the parties to the contract by non-performance or interference with the other party's performance is known as A. Breach. B. Non-disclosure. C. Voidable. D. None of these. Answer: A. Breach of contract is when one party does not honor the agreed upon terms of a contract by non-performance or interference with the other party's performance. Question 7. A clause that states a lender may demand the loan amount plus accrued interest in the event of a sale is called A. Addendum. B. Non-performance. C. Acceleration. D. Alienation. Answer: D. The clause in which a lender may call in the loan plus accrued interest in the event of a sale is known as alienation. This is different than an acceleration clause in which the loan can be called in due to non-performance of contractual duties, such as not paying mortgage payments. Question 8. What type of arrangement is a less than freehold estate? A. Owner/tenant. B. Tenant/sublessee. C. Lessor/sublessor. D. None of these. Answer: A. A less than freehold estate is an owner/tenant arrangement. Question 9. If an as-is clause is inserted into the sales contract for a property that seems to be generally okay on the outside and inside, this would be A. Allowed. B. Disallowed. C. Allowed only in cases of obvious defects. D. None of these. Answer: C. The only way an as-is clause is allowed in most situations is if there are obvious defects that any prudent person could discover. Typically they are disallowed by the real estate commissioner to protect consumers. Question 10. If one is transferring or conveying title to real property, it is called A. Alienation. B. Alluvion. C. Accretion. D. Succession. Answer A. The term alienate in real estate means to convey or transfer.
Exam Scholar, Real Estate Edition.